Making stuff and jacked up. Making stuff and jacked up.
So much.
Making stuff and jacked up. Making stuff and jacked up.
Let it go. You say get out of the way. Get it, Peachy.
Trust me.
The time's here now.
You're listening to Meadows and Makers podcast
with Jack Dub and Making Stuff. Peace.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of the Meadows and Makers podcast, brought to you here on MSP Waves, this interactive social media broadcasting network that we have here, or centered around the Steam universe, and the Steamiverse, as I like to say. So, thank you guys for being here this morning. Shout out to Peachy Mod and Rondon for hanging out in the Discord audience so far this morning, or evening, or wherever you are in the time-space continuum. So, this is going to be a laid-back show today. I have a returning guest coming on, but a little bit later in the show. As Robbie Olson, some of you guys that have been listening to the show are familiar with Robbie. He's close by to me and kind of homesteading friends, and he's one of the people that really helped me out with aquaponics when I first getting started, and he's been doing that for a long time because of health reasons of his family. And so that's something that usually is a point of a topic, but we get into all kinds of different topics. So we'll just catch up with Robbie today, and when he comes on, and just talk about what he's got going on currently, and you just kind of get an update and have a little discussion there. If you guys have been following along with me, I have currently set up camp off-grid, and I'm living off-grid in a camper right now. Right now I don't have reliable internet down there. It's a throttled internet, so I am not podcasting live from the off-grid property right now. I've come back to my folks' place to do this podcast. But I am looking into getting a no cap on speed unlimited plan, so that I can do full streams down there and just be down there all the time. So I'm going to kind of go into some of that stuff and some of the things I'm working on right now, and maybe a little bit of that progress today. And this morning, maybe get some feedback from you guys. on maybe something, some things or project ideas that maybe I'm going in the wrong direction, or maybe you guys have some good feedback for me. So yeah, feel free to come in and drop any comments on what you think about what I have going on, and let me know if I could be doing it better, if I could be doing it a different way. If you guys have any ideas, I'd love to hear them. So yeah, just a couple of things I need to do up front here is just to get the housekeeping stuff in order for the show. The disclaimer for the show here, and that is the views and opinions that are reflected are those of my own and those of my guests, and they do not reflect on MSP Waves broadcasts in this radio station or this social interactive media broadcast station that we have going on here, and the wonderful people that help run it. So with that being said, this show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. And if you have any comments or feedback or anything like that, please let me know. Send them my way. You can reach me on Discord here, and you can find me on Steam at Making Stuff. That's one thing. Maybe I don't tell everybody in the shows, but I'm Greg, also known as Making Stuff here on Steam It. So thank you guys. Thank you again for being here this morning. And so just one of the other things I like to do for the show is a little motto that I came up with is I will be an inextinguishable light of possibilities for myself and others. And just with all the distraction, all that stuff going on these days, I think if we focus on the things that we can do and we set our mind to that in creating the world that we want to see, then all these other things that are happening are just distractions, and we can build that future that we want to see into a more positive future if we just focus on that aspect and that reality. So those are some things, and just a mantra that hold in your heart, and to just move forward with everything in a positive direction. So if you're watching on mspwaves.com, then you'll be able to see some of the photos I have pulled up here. I'll also be throwing them into the Discord chat as well, but just for it to show up on my show recording, I'll be scrolling through everything here on the website. So if you're watching on the website, you may be able to see everything that I'm pulling up, at least in the video format, a little easier. So you can mute yourself here, and then you can watch on there, and then just keep typing in the chat room for comments or anything like that. Also, if you're watching on Vim, you can do the same thing. All those comments come piped in through the Discord chat, so we can see what you guys are saying in there. So chime away. And so, all right. So this week I started to work on some building my gates and getting some more security done on my land. Hey, Painting Angels, thank you for joining us this morning. I know you're around them Nashville parts, so you're around the same time zone as myself. So it is, well, it's transitioning to afternoon. So hi. So yeah, I just started working on getting these gates up, and I recently got all these power poles off of a guy on Craigslist, and they're old used power poles. So he had them up there for like $125, and he had several poles. He had a couple that were like around 20 foot, but I wasn't able to haul those on the trailer, so I had to take a chainsaw with me and cut them in half. So So I've got some 10-foot poles, and then I got a couple that are about 15 foot. And so I was picking through my pile this week, and I found a nice pole to use for one of my gates on the property, and so I installed those recently. Yesterday it rained most of the day, so it's been hot. It's been real hot in Alabama. Oh yeah. There we go. Howdy, Serena. I have the southern accent. I can turn it on, but I'll have to probably be talking to somebody else that has a southern accent. So, Serena, you said I use an axe, but I've never learned how to use a chainsaw. I think the universe doesn't need that to happen. Hey, it's not that bad. Using a chainsaw, it's just if it doesn't start right away for you, it can be a pain. And so, but yeah, it's you definitely have to be safe with them, because you can get them to kick back on you and stuff. So you just but once you figure it out, it's not a big deal. So yeah, I dug out a couple feet into the ground there, and I put these posts in and concreted them in this week on the rainy day, so it wasn't so hot out. I've been having to take a lot of breaks because of the heat in Alabama right now, and so with the rain, it actually cooled down a substantial amount, and I was able to get some good progress going. And so a lot of this stuff is with making progress on the homesteads, just little pieces at a time, and one project at a time. So this is something that I was working on this week. So I got that accomplished, and the fence is up, and at least one of the front gates of my land is up, so that I can have a little bit more security on people just coming in, and if they wanted to run off with the trailer or something like that, they'd have to at least work for it. At least work a little harder for it. So that's one of the step ones, one of the first things I want to get done down there. And now I'm starting to focus on my next project is to build some kind of structure over the camper. And it's just going to be a temporary, like a pavilion, pretty much, just like a simple lean-to structure. And that's one of the things that I'm getting help with from my buddy Robbie right now, is because they just picked up a lumber mill, and he set me up with some scraps that they weren't using in their lumber mill recently, so that I could use to build this temporary structure. So right now, that's what I got working on, and I picked up probably several, maybe like close to 15-foot boards from Robbie the other day. And I'm going to set out to build like I said, one of those pavilions over the camper. Reason being is that during the day, it just gets pretty oppressively hot. Right now, I'm just kind of ducking in the woods and still working throughout the day. But I would like to cut that heat a little bit on the camper while I'm out there. And so I'm looking at building just something out of wood. On the last episode with Senor Coconut, he suggested to build something out of wood to help cut the heat, rather than just put a tarp or something, or suspend a tarp over the camper. So that's what I'm looking to do, and I'll probably cut some trees down on the property to use as my poles. And then otherwise, I'll have I have all this wood that was milled that I just picked up from Robbie. And let me see if I'll post it in here. See if it'll come through on the Discord chat real quick here. Let's see. Should pop up there. I guess it's pretty big. I guess it's a pretty big picture, but so yeah, that's the next step ahead of me, is to get something in there to get some relief from the heat. Right now, what I've noticed, I have a 10 kilowatt hour battery bank, and I have a around 1.98 or 1,980 watts of solar power. I'm not generating that full amount, I know, during the day, because of the way that the angle of the panels is. And so I probably collect in, I don't know, I'd at least say maybe 1,200 watts or so of power when the sun's out. So what I've noticed is that I can't, the power draw on the AC, if I run the AC, I can really only run it part of the nighttime just to keep the humidity down in the trailer, so it's not like I'm sleeping in water. But anyway, I can't really run it during the day very much. The solar just can't keep up with it, because the AC's wanting to keep it too cool in there, and the heat, all the heat being in the trailer, just it just draws too much power from the system. So right now, that's what I'm working on. At least have a little bit of a shade to help out that AC from having to work too hard. And then maybe it'll be a little bit more tolerable in there during the day, to maybe work on some steam it posts during the midday or something like that. So that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah, Rondon, yeah, it uses a lot of electricity, probably around 1,200 watts when the AC's kicked on that camper. So, so right now, being off grid, you got to really think about how you're going to use your air conditioning, and because it does use a lot of power. So so that's one of the things I'm working with right now. So after I get a little lean-to structure up there, it should give me a little bit extra relief. So working on that. I'm going to be working solid on that this week to get that up and going. I love that little GIF, Inertia. It's a little cat being cooled down by a fan. So that's pretty good. So that's one of the struggles. It's one of the things to think about if you're going off grid, is that, you know, whatever you're sizing your and whatever comforts you're gonna want to use, you're gonna have to think about how you're gonna use them, and at what times are you gonna be able to run your AC, things like that, depending on and what all appliances you're gonna use. So right now I'm just figuring out, how to time everything and how I can save my batteries, and how much power use I can use, really, and figuring all that out right now. So yeah, that's just popped up, and finally loaded up there. That was a big picture. But I just got those from Robbie the other day, and so that's going to be all the wood that I'm going to use to build some kind of temporary structure here. And so yeah, it's just miscellaneous rough cut lumber, and they're some of them are like 2x6s, and then some of them are like 2x4s, and some various different cuts, and some live edge cuts on there and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll definitely be able to use them to just create some poles. I think I'm gonna have to create some poles first, and then use these to create my the roof structure portion of it. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on this week on the property, and maybe trying to get some help from a neighbor and a couple buddies to come over and help me with it. So I'll be working on that, and some other projects that I got going on right now. I've been working on this aquaponics system for my folks' place, and right now we're getting pretty close to getting it all wrapped up. But here's a little photo I'll throw up there of the next step of that is to install a sump system on the aquaponics. And what the sump is after all the water gets pulled through different filtration steps, there's a couple of cone tanks that are connected to the system, and it's all fed by gravity. So as the water flows downhill, it flows into two separate cone tanks, and the water swirls around. And so some of the heavier solids that are in the from the fish waste in the aquaponic system will settle down to the bottom, and it makes it easier to pull those off so that it doesn't break down in the system, and it causes the release of carbon dioxide in the system, and which will suffocate your fish. So you have these two cone tanks that it flows into. One is for the solids removal, and then one is for biofiltration, and that's a media tank. And what I mean by that is that the media that is in that tank gives a large surface area for this specific type of bacteria. It's nitrobacter, and that helps to convert the ammonia that is being released by the fish through their pee, essentially, and it converts that to useful food for the fish, for the useful nitrates for the fish, for the plants. So it gives that readily. It turns the waste into a readily available nutrient for all the plants that you're going to put in the system, and it can really supercharge the growth of all your plants, specifically plants like lettuces and things like that. Now Robbie, with his system, has really figured out how to do different types of plants. Yesterday I was over at his greenhouse, and he's got peppers going, he's got cucumbers, he's got squash, a certain type of variety of squash in there. And I know he's done strawberries and all kinds of stuff in his system, and had really good success with it. So yeah, maybe we'll be able to get some pictures from him when he comes on. But so that next part, and the picture that should pull up here for you in a second, is the photo of the system. It's just a simple backyard system using one of these IBC containers, one of these IBC tote containers, and you can find them all over the place, and you can find them on Craigslist deals, and probably a good price for some IBC totes is if you can find them under $100 for a food grade IBC tote, is a really good deal. So if you're looking into getting into the backyard aquaponics at all, and you're interested in doing some of that, feel free to reach out to me on Discord, and if you have any questions about it or anything like that, I'm here to ask questions. And then if you're looking to get into a system, then yeah, keep your eye out for those IBC totes. It's a fast way that you can get a fish tank up and running in your system. So So there, I see that photo uploaded in the Discord there. It looks like it's gotten uploaded. So that black trough tank you see there is just from it's a 100-gallon tank from Tractor Supply, and that'll get buried into the ground. That's the next thing I got to do is dig that into the ground, into the hill there. And then that's the final step of where all the water goes at the end of the filtration steps. It'll flow into that sump, and then it'll get pumped back into the top fish tank. So it's going to return the water after all the solids have been taken out and everything. It'll be pumped back into the main fish tank for the grow bed and for the plants, and then it gets sent up into the main fish tank where that water is really filtered and is really good for the fish. So after all those filtration steps and everything, so let's see if this picture of these fish gets uploaded in there as well. I'll let that go. So yeah, that's the next step, and for this system, it's almost completed. And then I'll have to build a standing raised bed on this thing and fill it with gravel. So it'll be about chest height. It'll be filled with gravel, and then you can use different types of gravel, but you want to stay away from anything like that may interact with the water pH and alkalize or make the water more acidic. And so some of the ones that have been successful, Robbie uses a river stone that you can go and pick up from like a landscaping supply company that's local, and you can just get a trailer load or a truckload of river stone, and that doesn't interact with the aquaponics system to change pH at all. So he's had success with the using the river stone. And then personally, I use pea gravel in my system. And shout out to Franz54. Thanks for joining this morning or evening or wherever you are in the time-space continuum. And then RP Carceres, I guess. Thanks for being here. Sorry if I butchered your name, but yeah, thanks for joining. This is a show all about like homesteading and kind of living a more self-reliant lifestyle if you haven't been here before. And right now, just going over a little bit of progress that I've been doing on my own personal homestead, and then a little bit of information about aquaponics. So if any of those things, if you have any questions about aquaponics or anything like that, feel free to chime in. I have a guest coming on, but he's coming on in a little bit. He's running a little behind today, so I was just sharing some progress with you guys on what I have going on currently and everything. So just sharing some of this stuff. So let's see. Something else that I'm working on is coming up with a little design for a bathhouse down on my land. Now, if you guys can see the fish in that image, let me know. If anybody can see a fish in that image, raise your hand. Nah, the stuff in the bottom there is fish poop, most likely. And so right now the system is set up in such a way that there's a pump in the main fish tank, and this is the way that it can get you started with aquaponics. You can put your pump right there in the main fish tank, and you can pump up the water into a bed at the top, and yeah, you could probably see just one fish. That's all I'm seeing in there, but yeah, it's like a Where's Waldo for tilapia. So I got about 15 fish in this 270-gallon IBC tote. And right now, I had a lot more in there, and I recently moved my life from a house in the city where I was doing this in my little area in my backyard in my urban homestead, and I moved it all down to transition into moving down to my off-grid land. And so I'm building this system at my folks' place, and it's just sitting here for now, and they're gonna use it. So I'm gonna build them. I'm building them a nice system that should run pretty hands off, and then gonna take whatever fish I can breed from this system and gonna move them down to my off-grid piece of property with its own system that's gonna be running on solar. So yeah, this is that picture right there. What I just showed is just a simple. It's a way to get started in aquaponics, and just using the IBC tote, and you pretty much just flip the top or cut the top off, and you flip it over, and then you put rock in it, and you put your stone in there, and you create what's called a bell siphon. And what that does is when the water level reaches a certain height, it triggers a siphon effect, and it drains all the water from that bed, so that the plants in the bed are able to get their nutrients, but they're also able to get oxygen, which is hugely important. Everything needs oxygen. Plants need oxygen. And so what that bell siphon allows you to do is be hands off on doing a flood and drain system. Instead of maintaining the water level at a certain height, it will reach a certain height, but then it will drain completely down to the bottom, and that just creates more oxygen in this system to keep it going. So that's one of the ways you can get started. And then you could see in the previous picture there that you had those cone tanks, and so that's the next step for if you want to get more sophisticated with these systems, but is a necessity, because you'll find over time that if you have your pump in the aquaponics system with the fish in the main tank, that you will get clogs all the time, and you're going to be working on maintenance on cleaning out your pumps, or putting in a new pump, or your lines get clogged or something like that. And so that's why it's essential to use these cone tanks and that separate filtration step to help you remove those solids from the system. So that's what I recommend to anybody that does want to get something started, is to set it up in such a way that you're using those filtration tanks. I will create like a DIY aquaponics guide, I think, in the future, and go into a lot of that stuff. And Robbie has a really good guide, and we'll talk about that when he comes on. It's something that he's wanting to release. He's still trying to figure out the best way of releasing it, and maybe I might help him get his little website going, is OffGrid Aquaponics, and get that going so he can get that material out there, and try to get him set up actually on the Homesteaders Co-op here on Steemit, which you can. It's homesteaders type people from all over the world that have homemade goods and tutorials and PDF guides and things on there, and it shows you they have you can buy those things for Steam or SBD. So if any of you are not familiar with Homesteaders Co-op yet, I'll do just a little plug for them, because I think they're a great thing that exists here on Steemit, and I like to share that with people if you're not familiar with them yet. So Let me pull up that link real quick, and I'll drop it in here for you guys. If you've been hanging out for the show, you probably know because I talk about it all the time. probably every week I might mention it, but that last photo there is a little picture of the top of that IBC tote that's cut off and flipped over, and right now everything that's growing in it. If you look closer at that photo, you can see that I have some damage on a few of the plants, and those plants are kale, and they grew really, the kale grew really well in the beginning, but what I didn't realize was that I started to see these bugs starting to attack it, and what I had come to figure out by talking to Robbie was that these are hornworm, and it's a type of caterpillar, and they are voracious eaters. I had a bunch of kale that had come up in the system, and these guys just devastated them. It was just incredible how fast they just took them out. And so right now I applied this treatment. Talking to Robbie, it's an organic pest control for hornworm, and it's a specific type of bacteria it's called BT, and it only affects the hornworm in the system, so it's perfectly good for if you want to use it as an organic treatment in your aquaponics system. So I found it at my local co-op, and when I went in there and talked to them about it, they were a little confused on what I was asking for, but I said it was probably in the organic section, and so somebody led me over there, and turns out that they had some over there, so that worked out, and now I have kale that might live. It looks like it's coming back, but pretty much all the plants are doing in this little system right now is just being able to help keep those pH under control, and I need some various plants in there so that the whole cycle works to help filter the water for the fish right now. So as I finish up this system, they're doing their job to help keep the water clean and everything like that. So I also planted some flowers in there from a tip from Robbie, because the flowers are a way to attract more beneficial insects towards your aquaponics system that can help you with your pest control as well. So the flowers bring in pollinators, bees and things like that. And then also dragonflies is something I learned, that dragonflies will attack some of the different pests that you have in your system, and so that are not good for your system. So yeah, those dragonflies come in and they're attracted by the flowers. So if you're trying to grow food and when you're growing food, it's also important to plant in flowers because of the benefits that they bring in to attracting other beneficial insects. So definitely don't neglect your flowers in your system, is a lesson learned for me. I'm all about growing food, but and not really worrying too much about making pretty flowers, but those pretty flowers are super helpful in your system. So don't neglect your flowers is the moral of the story there. Yeah, Serena, dragonflies, really great. And then bats, yeah. Bats are really good for keeping your mosquitoes down and all those insects down. So I haven't built a bat house yet, but we have them flying all over the place here. This part of Alabama is like one of the highest cave densities in the country. If you guys didn't know that about Alabama, There's a huge limestone deposit, or it's pretty much all limestone because it was at the bottom of the ocean at one point in time. And so this the part of northern Alabama has one of the highest cave density populations on in the U.S. So it's a really good thing. So see, Serena said everyone should grow milkweed too, to help the monarch butterflies. It's the only plant that they will build their cocoons on their migration to Mexico. Okay, cool, yeah. Yeah, I'll have to look into milkweed. I'm not growing any of that yet, but yeah, check out milkweed and helping out the monarchs. They are some beautiful butterflies, for sure. Also, another Steamian was really awesome lately, and Nate on Steam It, one of my buddies here, he sent me some Goji Berry seeds, and I planted those recently, and they're all coming up. They're all germinating, so I was really happy about that. I'm seeing a lot of these Goji Berries pop up, and Goji Berries is a really good thing for your health, and so I've been planting them. I'll be planting them down on my property, and brought a few things down to my property on this last week, and I'm gonna be planting thornlet. Well, let's see what all I brought down there. I think I brought some turmeric, and a fig tree, and some chocolate mint, and so so I'm bringing those down to go ahead and plant them down there, and get that started down there. So my whole idea for the property is to turn it into a permaculture farm. So I want to really be growing a lot of foods and things that are going to be perennials that'll come back every year. So I think I just got a little bell signal from my buddy Robbie here on Zoom. We're doing a Zoom call, so it should pipe over my desktop. And if you guys can hear everything, just let me know. If you guys can hear Robbie on the other end, just let me know. Hey Robbie, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sounds pretty good. How's it going?
Well, good. It's going fine. Just got back to the house. So.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, how's the homestead life going for you right now? And how's the big aquaponics system coming along?
Aquaponics system is coming along. It's been a slow endeavor, but it always is. It takes a little time for it to develop. But yeah, I've got my secondary side hooked up now, and I'll be moving my little fingerlings from my breeding operation over into those larger tanks and expanding out. So it's moving right along.
Cool. So you're collecting, like, I don't know, how many gallons of water are you collecting? How many totes do you have set up for that?
I've got 4 IBC totes, and they're 330 gallon each tote.
Okay.
I have those linked together through the bottom. There's a valve at the bottom of those IBC totes, and you can hook a pipe between the outlets and just turn the valves on, and then it just acts like one big tank, and it goes up and down all at the same time. So 4 of them at 300 gallons, so roughly 1,200 gallons. And what I have is a gutter system on my greenhouse in my barn, and every time it rains, it just gutters right over into those totes and keeps them full. So
nice. Yeah, I was letting everybody know about going over there the other day and hanging out with you and getting some of that stuff from the lumber mill and everything, and just talking a little bit about, life as a homesteader, and like, that you got some of your challenges and things like that going on, and
yeah, and of course you were here when we had our issue with the sawmill.
yeah, I don't know if you want to share that story or not, but it's
well, we had bought the sawmill from an individual, and apparently he had taken it off of someone's property, and so when we went to buy parts and register the thing, it came back and they said, "Hey, this thing doesn't belong to the guy that sold it." So we had to give it back, and we're going to go next week over to the factory over there and just buy a new one this next time. I'm not going to mess around with having a scenario like that come up again, because the sawmill is going to be or has become an integral part of the homestead. It opens up so many opportunities for you to mill lumber, and you can build structures and do things that you normally would be too cost prohibitive.
Yeah, because the lumber cost that you guys were talking about was like, you were just saying the other day that the lumber that you had just done was probably around, $30,000 in lumber or something like that.
Well, it's not quite that much, but yeah, it's up there, because we had milled out 16-foot long 4x12 beams, and just go out there and try to find you a 4-inch by 12-inch by 16-foot long oak beam and see how much it costs you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And we, the beauty of it is that we got all the trees were given to us, because people have storm damage and their trees get knocked down, and they call us and we go pick them up. And this one particular fellow, he was clearing off a lot to build a home, and it was real heavily wooded, and we've been hauling logs out of there for a couple of weeks. So we've got a sizable inventory built up of logs, and we've got about as many as you saw here the other day. We got about that many more to go get. And I've got a fellow down south of here who has 24 large 60-foot tall pine trees. That's going to make, by the time we cut that down into 16-foot logs, that'll make 3 logs or 4 logs millable size per tree. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's going to be almost 100 logs there. That's a lot of lumber. There's no doubt about it. So
Yeah. I mean, when you just think about it that way, I mean, just the amount of money that you save on the amount of lumber that you can create pays the thing off pretty.
right.
Fairly,
That's where I was at this morning. I went down to Lee's place, and he's in the process of clearing off his land, but we're going to just build a cabin on his place down there, 30 by 32 cabin, and the majority of it's going to be wood that we mill.
Yeah.
It'll have oak floor joists and oak girders, and then we'll actually go buy kiln dried material to build the walls with, because you don't want that shrinking on you. But rest of it, all the beam work and everything is all going to be from that, and then we're going to mill out the batten board siding, and
so with batten board, what is batten board? Is that just like the you just slice the log and you have like a rough cut thing?
No, the batten board siding is where you cut planks 1 inch thick, and they'll be anywhere from 10 inches to 12 inches wide, You try to get them as much the same as possible. And you put those boards just straight up and down on the wall, and then you'll put strips over the joints where they butt together.
Okay.
And by doing that way, you could actually use the wood before it gets completely dried. And then as it dries, it will shrink down, but you're going to have the seams are all going to be covered with the strip. And then as it dries also, it's going to shrink around the nails and the screws and stuff so that it'll be, it'll really be there.
Okay. So if you wanted to remove it, you couldn't.
Well, you'd have a hard time. That would be for sure. You know, the old timers, when they built those structures and they came over and started settling, they would build their structures out of the green lumber for that very reason, because they did a lot of the mortise and tenon construction. And as the lumber shrinks, it gets tighter in on itself so that it actually becomes stronger.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why you'll.
That's why you see
try to
those
pull a nail out of
200-year-old barns.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's just kind of a lost thing that it's coming back around some, but people haven't done it for, 100 years.
Now, is that something that you're learning yourself, or had you already known how to do construction techniques like that, or?
Well, I
you're
knew
gonna teach
some of it, but
yourself?
I'm having to learn some of it as I go. And
Yeah.
I was a home builder for over 15 years.
Right.
So I know a lot of construction techniques, but you learn stuff all the time, especially when you're doing the homesteading.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the lumber's gonna come directly off of his property and be used to build the cabin for the most part, huh?
That's the idea. Yeah. So.
Well, that'll be awesome.
We're going to have the majority of the lumber to build his cabin is going to come off this property, or what we collect that people are getting us.
You guys plan on documenting that at all, or just gonna?
Well, we wanted to.
We
wanted to, set up some cameras and just document it from start to finish.
Yeah.
Of course, from what you do that sometimes you get busy with stuff and you don't take the time to get out there and set up the cameras and do all of that stuff. It's kind of a whole endeavor in itself.
Yeah, it is.
So
yeah,
but we do plan on trying to document it if we can.
Yeah.
Of course, he was, kind of in a crunch to try to get some stuff done before it got winter.
Right.
And so we're just going to take it as far as we can. And
we don't have winter in Alabama.
Well, it's not necessarily so much cold as it is just wet.
It makes it harder to do everything.
Yeah, it's harder to do everything. You can't get vehicles in and out and that sort of thing.
Right. So that's going to be the focus, is getting his cabin done.
Yeah, that's his primary focus. We're going to dedicate 1 or maybe 2 days a week to going out and collecting logs from people, or milling for people for a profit. Because we have to make a living at the same time. So,
right.
Now, of course, you try to get. Go ahead.
Well, you were telling me the other day that the idea, if you have one of these mills, and what you were learning was that if you can make some furniture or something out of them, you can be able to get a good price for that live edge kind of look.
Yeah, we're starting to see that people will they like the idea and the look of the stuff. They don't want to buy the raw materials and build it themselves. Most people don't, but they don't have any second thought about buying something that's already built. And a lot of people are willing to pay nicely for it. But you have to have the ability to saw the wood first, and then the ability to put it into something that people are looking for, a table or a bench or
right,
whatever. So
yeah, I think those at these breweries, these microbreweries are popping up everywhere, and and they like a couple of them that were up in Huntsville, they all have those rough cut lumber epoxy bar top tables. Is
right.
really popular.
Yeah, and see, they have to go out and hire somebody or find somebody that's got a sawmill to saw the wood up for them, and unless they just happen to have somebody that just has a bunch of that stuff around. But it's usually not that easy to find someone to put together stuff like that.
Right. So you'll be the guy.
Well, I'll be the guy in this little area right here.
Right.
We also found out that these sawmill companies, there's 3 or 4 of them that are making the sawmills, and they've been selling the fire out of these things for the last 20 years. So there's folks dotted around, that have these sawmills, but not all of them actually will mill for other people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you said it's been pretty popular though, getting started on that and getting all that kicked off. And so we've been talking a little bit. I just posted a picture up there, and it was a picture that I sent you about my idea for a little bathhouse, and and what I've been thinking about is just a little. At first, I was thinking 10 by 10, but I got some feedback from some people on the blog, and they were saying that I might want to think more like a 12 by 12 little place, just to be not wasteful with materials and such. And so the idea is just I have all these old power poles that I want to build this structure into the side of the hill so that it's kind of it's more incognito, and use those power poles to build on the unlevel ground that I'm on without having to do any earthwork or anything.
Yeah, trying to do earthwork on a hill is it's frustrating to say the least. I don't know what your incline is that you have on the hill.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's probably around, 30 degrees or so, something like that. So
yeah, that would be that'd be quite a bit of work to get in there, because you'd have to build you a little roadway to get down there to it, just to get your machine down there.
Yeah. That's the neighbor supposedly has a old bulldozer that's kind of broken down, so I might be able to help him fix it up, to maybe do a little bit of earthwork there. So I haven't seen it yet, but so I was gonna go over there and talk to him about it and see if we could fix it up and maybe use it to do a little stuff over there. But he's actually got some equipment, which would be useful. So I'm gonna look into that. But I don't know. This is kind of my vision for right now, and I'm gonna start working on getting the beams put in the ground for it and getting all that done.
Right. Yeah, you could. Once you get your posts in the ground, like I was telling you, you could just you put your floor bands around that, and then cut the beams or the poles off flush with the bands there.
Yeah, and I was watching a program about how to do this kind of thing and building on stilts, and they were saying that when you put your where you're talking about your band in for the floor, you want to cut the notch in so that the band fits in that notch, and then you lag bolt in so that the beam is actually, or the post is actually holding that weight of the beam instead of just being all on that hardware.
Right. That's what that's what's called a frame rest.
Yeah. Okay.
Frame rest. And yes, it's required, when you're building a home or whatever, and you're putting beam work in for porches or anything like that, you have to have what they call a frame rest. It has to sit on an actual stud or a post in the wall or something along those lines. And then same thing with the floor. If you just take a post and you run it up there and you slap the band on the outside and just run the lag bolt through that or the nail through it, then all of your weight and pressure is on that pivot point between the two pieces of wood, and it's all on that one set of nails or bolts.
Yeah. Yep.
And so
bad news bears. Yeah.
yeah. So, you mitigate that by, like you said, you cut a notch and you set it in so that it's effectively sitting on top of the pole,
right,
instead of
attached to it.
Instead of just attached, yeah.
So I just got a question from the audience. Random internet guy. He says, I just got an inspection on a house. One of the rooms has an improper foundation with movement, and the inspector recommends structural engineer to bid on it to fix it. And he's asking if have a rough estimate on how much it would cost an engineer to redo the foundation of an attached room. And he says,
"Oh Lord, that's a
20,000
worms." Well, I mean, it could be, the numbers could be all over the place depending on where you are and what their regulations are, what their requirements are.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to just on an audio thing like this give anybody any kind of
estimate
on that.
Yeah. That was just a random question in the audience.
Yeah.
Since
if you've got a foundation that's settling and moving, then you've got something going on with the footing.
Right. Right.
Moving there. So depending on how the place is and how it was built to start with, when I've built homes around here, you can get away with like 6 inches of concrete on the footing and be in code, but I would always run them down 12 inches, and then I would do triple strand rebar reinforcement. Yeah. Footing, and it cost a little bit more money, but those footings never went anywhere.
Yeah.
I never had any problems with any cracking or moving because, you got to get your base as structurally sound as possible.
Yeah. So the guy says it's a 12 by 12 room, and he said the inspector said the foundation is only 2 inches deep.
Oh, good God.
So you might have some issues there.
Yeah, you're going to have to come in there and jack the floor up, put some temporary struts under it, and then remove that section of foundation and put it back new.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a project for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a project, yeah, because you'll have to take out your block work and brick or whatever else you have, and get it down to the foundation or the footing, then dig the footing out, and then dig you a new footing and pour that and put it all back. So, I wish him luck.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, good luck, random internet guy, with that one. But sounds like it's going to be a little bit of work. So yeah, man. We're going over some. You just recently had kind of an aha moment with the aquaponics system. I don't know if you want to share share that with the audience today.
Sure. I was, when I set up my old system, or I moved my old system and I was setting it back up, I had these cone tanks that I was using for the biofilter and the swirl tank. And apparently they had, something had got in there and had died or whatever and had dried up. And when I put the water to it, it started stinking real bad. And I thought, oh, Lord, I'm going to have to drain all this stuff out. But I thought, well, I'm just going to give it a shot. And I got my meter out and I checked for the pH to see if there's something I could do with altering the pH, maybe to solve the problem, because it's a bacteria. And so I just decided to give it this wild shot, and I stuck a ozone generating air stone down in there, and I thought, well, maybe I can kill off this bacteria and this will go away. And during the process of this, I discovered while taking the readings that the pH of the system would drop markedly every time I did the ozone. And I don't know chemically or anything exactly what the process is that's happening, but it was a pretty good little revelation, because then my pH was running high, as all new systems do. When you start a new aquaponics system, the pH tends to go up first before it starts to go down, before it gets cycled all the way.
Yeah.
So it just it kind of occurred to me. I said, well, gosh, dog, if this ozone is dropping the pH, it may be possible to use an ozone stone in new systems to help regulate them in order to get your beneficial bacteria established. Now, obviously, you wouldn't want to do the ozone right where you're trying to establish your bacteria for your filter colony, but you could do it in another tank somewhere, and it'll clear the water in that tank and then add oxygen to the water at the same process. And then if it can drop the pH at the same time, then you really got something going on. Just an accident, I discovered it.
Yeah, just because you were trying to eliminate that bacteria, because the ozone can help kill pathogens and stuff, right?
Right. So that was the idea there. And so what I wound up doing is I wound up leaving the stone in the third tank, or the second tank there, and just running it a couple times a day for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes at a time. And over the course of about 4 to 5 days, the system has corrected itself, and now it's stabilized out with a pH of 7, and my beneficial bacteria has started to grow and take off, and smell's gone, and I've got seeds germinating. So
yeah, so you had an idea that maybe you could do some experimentation, right, with setting up a control with non-ozone, and then setting up an ozone one where you maybe be able to trim pH levels in local areas or something.
Yeah, that was an idea. I thought, well, if we could monitor this thing so that we could, like you said, do a control and determine exactly what we were seeing with the patterns, then you could then take your ozone stone and put it in the flower pot that I put in my beds where the water comes in.
Yeah.
And if you put that ozone in there, then you would effectively be able to lower down your pH. If you had say a particular type of plant that liked the pH to be a little bit lower, then you could do zone pH controlling in your aquaponics system.
Yeah.
Because typically your aquaponics is going to be all one body of water, and therefore your pH will be roughly the same. Now, your biofilter tanks and stuff, the pH is going to be a little lower. And then in the grow beds, the pH is going to be a little bit lower. because of the bacterial activity going on there. But overall, they're fairly close. But it was just an idea. I'd like to do some experimentation with that and see if we can pull it off. Then what that's going to do is open up a wider range of things that you can grow in the system.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And some of the ideas that came to my mind were, if you were able to log the data, then you could start to actively monitor the pH levels, and then be able to kick on the ozonator to get the pH targeted to where you want, and then you could do that all automatedly without having to.
Yeah. And that would be the real nice part of that, would be having it automated, so that you don't have to just stay over the system all the time. Which I've got, my system is fairly automated now. It just runs off of the one pump. You've seen it.
Yeah.
But once you get those valves dialed in as far as the right flow rate, it's pretty much just sits and runs itself. You have to, go out and check it for pH and that sort of thing. And especially if you're new to it, you really need to check the pH and ammonia and all that stuff, sometimes multiple times per day. But
right.
I've got so used to doing it, I can pretty much look at the water and tell by the smell or the way the water looks or whatever, what's going on with the system.
Right. And now you are you're also breeding this guy, or you're breeding the tilapia, and you've got several aquarium tanks set up to where you pretty much started over with your fish, right? And
yeah, I got down to 7 fish.
Wow.
I had
Dang.
7 adult fish, and of course my population is back up. You saw that too.
Yeah.
Just from the one little breeding cycle. Tilapias are prolific breeders, but they have to have the right conditions. They have to have the right temperature, right pH, and the right amount of light. And if you can provide them with all 3 of those, they will breed like crazy.
Yeah, because you got over 1,000 fish or something now from just a couple adults or something like that.
Yeah, I had, I think I got 3, maybe 4 fish with eggs.
Yeah.
And, and then I had some of them die off. It's just the way it is. You're not going to get 100%. But,
right.
I think I was able to retain about 85%, 90% of what all hatched out.
So how many fish are you able to run in your system as it stands right now?
Well, I'm not at full capacity right now, but I could run.
Yeah.
I could run upwards of 1,200 to 1,500 once I get the other side populated over there with the 2 IBC Totes.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. And so we were talking a little bit yesterday on what we got winter coming up. It's a little bit of ways, but right now is really focusing on getting prepared for it. But you set up your greenhouse here so that you segregated off your breeding system and your fish tanks from the rest of the greenhouse in its own insulated room, right? Hey, Robbie, you still there? Let's see here. Hey, Robbie, I see that you put your microphone on mute or something on your end. It looks like, but we'll see if you can. I don't know what's going on with your stuff right there. It looks like. Can you hear me? Looks like you may be muted. If you look in the bottom left corner of the Zoom, you should be able to fix that. I see your mute went away. Are you still there? I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, shoot. That sounds good.
I got you back. You went out on the audio there for a minute on me.
Yeah.
But we got you back. But we were just talking about how you're getting one of the things that you're doing for winter time is that you have all your fish in a separate area.
Go ahead.
We were just talking about how you have your aquaponics system. You have all your fish segregated from your main greenhouse in one area that you have insulated. You still there with me, Robbie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good, butt nogger. Heck, let me jump off here. I got mortar all over me. Bye.
Hey.
Hey.
He's still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened.
Sounded like you had to take another call or something.
Yeah, Lee called in and it just interrupted and just went straight to his call. And
all right.
It turns out, get this, it turns out that he carried those parts over there to that record company where they carried the mill. And he met the lady there that, claimed the mill, that said the mill was theirs. Didn't know she was there, but she was there when he got there. And she told him not to go buy another mill because they're probably going to give it back to us.
Really?
So.
That's great news.
Yeah. So.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
If that's the case, so the lady said that she would be able to
very thankful. Yeah, she's very thankful that we was cooperative and this, that, and the other, and that they wasn't going to be able to do nothing with it anyway. And since he had helped her get back some of this other stuff, that they was probably just going to give it back to us.
That is killer, man. That's killer. Great. That's amazing. Well, I hope that works out.
Yeah, I do too. Because
Yeah.
Having to go get another meal, you get to drop another $20,000.
Right.
And even though that sounds like a lot of money, I mean, it is a lot of money. It's in the grand scheme of things, it saves a lot of money when on the homestead.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Yeah.
Because it would pay for itself in no time, for the amount of money you save. Of course, there's a lot of labor involved. You have to be willing to get out there and bust your rump a little bit to get to it, but it's a good way to make a whole lot of value on your property.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was big news. So yeah, that's cool that you got that call from him, and maybe we can get that operation back up and running soon.
Yeah, well, we were going to get it back up and running no matter what we had to do.
Right. But this doesn't put out any extra funds or anything.
Put out any extra funds or anything. So, and that's really good. So.
Yeah. Well, great, man. Yeah. So yeah, right before that happened, we were talking a little bit more about your aquaponics system and how you had that thing separated so that you have all your fish tank and all your breeding and all that kind of operation
right.
is all in an
I think I was
insulated
telling
room and
you,
everything.
Yeah, I was telling you about the number of fish that I could have in there, and I could have
Yeah.
500 to 1,000 fish per IBC tote
Yeah.
if you got the proper filtration in place.
Right.
You definitely don't want to go that dense starting out, or if you don't have any kind of biofilters set up. Well, I would never build
Right.
one without a biofilter, but there are people that build them and then they put the fish wastewater directly into the grow bed, and you can do that, but it just requires you cleaning it out, and you have to keep your fish density very low.
Right.
So I guess it just would depend on your priority on that. If you, I find that I have to keep the fish density up pretty decent population, because you never know if you're going to have a cold snap, you're going to have some die, and then plus the whole idea behind homesteading and going off grid to start with is that you have your own food source.
Right.
And, protein is an essential part of that. So.
Right. And we were talking the other day too about, the energy use on your pumps. You said you're using about 600 watts for the pump, and you have two of those running continuously.
Yeah, I think the combination of the two of them is just under 1,000 watts, but
okay.
I think I can get that on down some. I'm just going to have to get out there and mess around with it. I really need to try to find some high efficiency pumps if possible. Or I even thought about designing some systems that would utilize primarily a gravity feed. If you have a large tank that's elevated, like a main feed tank, that you could then run the pump periodically to pump the water up to that tank and then turn the pump off and let the gravity feed back down. That might be a way to save energy as well.
Yeah. There's different methods. We were talking a little bit at one point in time about doing the pneumatic pumping air to help pump the water. But
that's another idea that I want to experiment with. I haven't done any actual building of those airlift pumps.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of energy level it's going to require in order to make that happen.
Right.
But I do know that I took my little old 7-watt air pump that runs my air stones and stuck an air stone down in some water in a pipe just to see how much it'd lift it. And it didn't get a whole lot of lift, but there again, it could be the configuration or number of things. So. Right.
Just probably a more powerful pump or something like that. So,
I'm sure there's ways to set up the piping so that you'll get a constricted flow that'll cause the air to do more lift.
Right. Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to experiment with, to see if you can get that power down. Because, with doing the solar and all that, you really have to worry about you need to size your battery bank accordingly to how much power you're going to be using continuously, and so your battery bank grows in size as the power demand goes up. So
right.
Yeah, any way that you can cut down on the power uses will help, cut down the costs of your solar system. So,
right, and you want to try to keep it as energy efficient as possible. I mean,
yeah.
Anyway, because you don't want to have some great big huge power system to run something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of the big things with aquaponics, is that it does take some power. And what I've learned that last season growing on my city property was that I was not properly prepared for heating the fish tank during the winter time. And then I did have a couple of incidences where the fish got too cold, and I did lose some from the cold. And so Yeah, I ended up using like an old water bed heater to keep the water warm, and then an electric heater. But this year, I would like to figure out something with a solar water heating, and you built
I've actually got one of
something like
those.
that, didn't you?
Yeah. Next time you come over, we'll pull that thing out because I need to get it out and get it running. It's basically I took a piece of plywood. Well, the first thing I did is when we being in construction, I had a guy give me some old sliding glass doors.
Yeah.
You know, those patio doors.
Right.
And I took the glass out of the frame because it's a 2-pane thing. In the middle of it, they've got some condensation and, some stuff that got in between the panes. But I took the panes apart and I bought these little aluminum frames that they use when you build your homemade solar panels.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a little aluminum channel, and it's got a little slot in it so you can put the glass in there. Anyway, I made the frame and put the glass out of those patio doors on that frame. Then I took a piece of plywood and matched up the size of the frame and went and bought 1/2-inch copper pipe.
Yeah.
And then just made a up and down zigzag pattern on the piping, secured it down to plywood, painted it all black, and then put the glass over the top of it. And you want to talk about heating some water.
Pumps out some pretty good heat.
Yeah, it pumps out a lot of heat, and you can use a real small, like a 30-watt pump, and you can set up just a small solar panel that runs in the daytime and go to a little DC pump like that. Have it so that when the sun comes up, it powers that pump up and it starts pumping through that solar water heater, and it just pumps right out of your sump tank through the solar water heater and puts it right back in.
Yeah.
And I've been able to raise 1,000 gallons of water up, 8 to 10 degrees per day. And
wow,
that's saying a lot because I tried using electric water heaters, and I had 2,000 watts of electric water heating.
Yeah.
And it raised that same body of water 1 degree in the course of 48 hours.
Yeah, wow. Dang.
And so that solar is a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be even better if you could create like a water heated battery, like a really insulated tank where you can keep that water, keep that energy stored in like a really well insulated tank, and then
sure, I don't see why not.
And then run a heat exchanger off of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities with that, but just that alone will keep your system running during the winter.
Yeah, that's something that is a necessity, and to keep it, from having to put in too much power into it, you really need some kind of solar or, some alternative way that you're not having to spend energy on heating that water during the winter time.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do is a thermal siphon. If you've got like a wood burning stove,
yeah,
you can take your copper line and curl it around the pipe, the ventilation pipe that goes up from the wood burner.
Yeah.
And then you can send water through that. And once it gets going, because it's hotter there, it'll pull water into that pipe and then shoot hot water out the other end. So
yeah, I pulled up several videos here of that concept, and some of them are showing like you have your wood stove, and then you have like a copper coil inside the wood stove or in a section of the wood stove, and then you just circulate the water into like a hot water heater tank.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, just another off-grid method of keeping some good hot water going.
Yeah, and I've had people tell me before, they say, well, why don't you just use a cold water fish? And you wouldn't have to do all of that.
Well, in
the
Alabama,
problem is,
that's tough.
Well, yeah, then you wind up with two things. You have to refrigerate the water for the fish, but then you have to warm the water back up for the filtration. Either that or you have to use chemical or mechanical filtration, because if you're using biological filtration to clean up the ammonia and stuff out of the water, which is what we're shooting for, we want to go all organic.
Right.
And you have to maintain a water temperature above 50 degrees. If you don't, it kills off your culture that does your biofiltering.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what fish you have. So.
Okay. Yeah. So if you ever fall below 50 degrees, then that bacterial colony could severely be damaged, or.
That's right. If it gets down below 45, it'll completely die.
Wow.
So, in order to maintain it, it'll be completely dormant at around 48 to 50. But it'll survive enough to where when the water warms back up, it'll start multiplying again. If it gets down below 45, you're back to square one. You're going to have to start all over.
Right. Yeah, so, I'm seeing a lot of these pictures of people doing all kinds of different thermosiphons here. They got some that are doing them for their outdoor jacuzzi tub and stuff too.
Yeah. Well, thermosiphon can get the water really hot. But even so, that it's putting out that hot steam and everything, it's not as effective on a large body of water as the solar is.
Really?
No, it's not. At least not in my experience.
Because the solar is more of a gradual thing, and it can.
Well, it goes all day long, and it's working on a continuous basis, even though it's not as hot. But the thermosiphon is working just one little spot, and the volume of water is a lot smaller that's going through it. Even though it's hotter when it comes out, the amount of water it's able to heat up over a period of time is less than a sizable solar water heater. So,
yeah,
at least that's been my experience with it. Now, I'm sure that you could probably build some massive thermosiphon and get right up there, even more so. I did see a guy on YouTube who had one of those pellet burning heaters. And he had like a radiator type thing.
Yeah.
And he had that thing mounted directly onto the pellet burning heater. And this heater had an auto feed on it that would feed these wood pellets in.
Yeah.
And the sucker was getting way up there in temperature, 1,000 degrees or something. And it had this radiator on top, and he was pumping that water through that radiator.
Okay.
And he was able to keep, like 700 to 1,000 gallons. He was able to keep that water, nice and warm, in the 70 range.
Yeah.
But that would require a good bit of effort there. You're going to have to constantly feed that doggone wood heater.
Yeah. So that's something I'm kind of looking at, actually, is building one of these little thermosiphons for my bathhouse project.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe using that.
Now, for something, like you're talking about, where you're going to store it 50 gallons, that thermosiphon, man, it'll do great.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking, like, you're ready to get the shower prepared for the day or whatever. You go out and you make a little fire, and then thermosiphon gets it all set up and stored into a water heater, an old water heater or something like that. And then you just have a little pump that pumps that and for your shower or something.
Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work. It'd work really well, probably.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of your wood heater, I mean.
Yeah, one of my buddies, Jack Dubb, my old co-host, they did something similar with an outdoor shower, but he found that just having a garden hose that was in the sun on enough of a drop that got the water hot enough that he didn't have to even run it through any stove or heater or anything like that. Just having the garden hose out in the sun was enough to get it hot enough.
Yeah, I mean, the sun, per unit of volume, there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Collected there. So.
Yeah, so, well, one thing that I was recently looking at, I saw a tweet by old Cliff High. I know you know about Cliff High, but he was talking about how India, their soils are being degraded like crazy. And one of the things that he suggested was biochar. And that was one of the things that we talked about was another byproduct for a sawmill would be to do something like biochar and creating that as a soil supplement.
Yeah, shoot, I'm all about that kind of thing. I want to try to get this whole place that I have over here. I want to enrich the soil and do all these organic things and just make this like a little 40-acre oasis, you know.
Well, you're already on your way pretty well, right? You already have a bunch of fruit trees planted and things like that.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of blueberry bushes and peach trees and pear trees, and we still got to plant some apple trees yet, but we'll be planting those when the time comes later this year.
Yeah, I've done the research into some of that with G. Edward Griffin's book, A World Without Cancer, and he talks about how the component in organic fruit, the seeds, have a vitamin B17, and it's they've looked all around the world in a lot of like the native tribes, and there was a specific tribe in Russia, I believe, that was eating the seeds of like apricots and things like that, and they never, they wouldn't get cancer. And so one of the things was that, a lot of the diseases of the past, they figured out that it was a deficiency of some sort, like scurvy was a deficiency in vitamin C, and that's all it took to solve it. And so, this component B17 is something that can help in cancer prevention, and it's just common. And if you can get a good organic source of your own fruits that contain these seeds that with that component, then it can be very beneficial for your health.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's amazing that we've got all of that stuff in the natural world around us, and you've got companies out there that are trying to make a product based off of those natural products so that they can claim intellectual property on it, patent it. They can't own a patent to like, regular organic corn, but if they modify it, then all of a sudden they can have a patent. And in the process of doing all this, they deplete all the soils of all the macro and micronutrients. And what you're left with is a soil that won't grow anything unless it's genetically modified or something.
Right.
And I was listening to a guy just this morning and talking about the kidney disease and stuff, and he was talking about the vast majority of all of that stuff can be traced back to, specific genes in genetic modified food products.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a big problem that's going on, and taking, being able to grow your own organic fruits in a perennial thing, I think is pretty important going into the future, and then being able to help feed the soils is something that's very important too, because the soils have been depleted of a lot of the minerals and things like that, and
and then all of the fulvic is about gone out of the soils too. So your plants can't metabolize stuff a lot of times because they don't have, even if they do have some of the nutrients available because of fertilizers, they can't uptake it sometimes.
Right. So that was one thing I was going to ask you is like, where do you get your seed source? What is your seed source that you like to use for the aquaponics and growing all that? Do you have
Well, I've tried
trusted source that you buy from?
Places, I'll go to the co-op and get stuff, and I'll make sure that I'll ask them, is this genetic modified? Is this organic? And the only thing that I'll buy would be the heirloom seeds. And then once I've got a supply of heirloom seeds, then typically you don't have to buy them that often again, unless something happens to your fruit supply, because then you can, when I say fruits, vegetables, or whether you got cucumbers, tomatoes, or whatever, if they're heirloom, then you can just take a few of your tomatoes that you produce, put those in a compost pile, and you've got new tomato plants. And
yeah.
So,
do you guys save any of your seeds?
We have saved a few along the way, but we don't typically save a bunch of them. I do have some around here that I've saved up. So if you
okay,
you need a few seeds along the way, I might be able to help you out with some of that.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's a little bit of a process to go through that, but before we started, we were just talking about some of the things that grow pretty well in aquaponic systems, and I've had really good success with some of the lettuces and like kale. And
any of the greens,
like
lettuce, all varieties of lettuce, cabbage, kale, all of that stuff just thrives in aquaponics. Matter of fact, a lot of the commercial growers with lettuces they won't even have a gravel bed or anything. They'll just run it with through a float system. Where they have a floating raft bed.
Right.
But now I tried the floating raft bed and it works.
Yeah.
But for the amount of labor and work you have to put into it, I couldn't see having to go through all of that for the small difference that I was getting in the number that I could get, because once I get the gravel bed established, and since I have the filtration the way I do now, I could see if you didn't have any biofiltration tanks and you didn't have any catchment tanks to catch the solids, I could see where having a floating raft bed would be beneficial, because you wouldn't have all of those solids building up in that gravel. But the way I do it with the solid removal and everything, there's, as far as the labor is concerned, to set up the floating raft, and then you have to, germinate your seeds, and you have to pick apart the plants and then put them in individual little pods and stick them down in the nets. And you know, to go through all of that is just redundancy and overkill when you can just throw seeds out in the gravel bed and have as many, if not more, plants. So,
Right. I I really haven't had the success that you've had with the different types of vegetables that you've been able to grow in there. What all have you had success with in your aquaponic system?
let's see. I've grown cantaloupe, cucumbers, tomatoes, squash, zucchini, all types of lettuce, cabbage. Even had some garlic,
Wow.
and you would think that it wouldn't work well for things like carrots, but carrots like it too.
Really? You've had some
Yeah.
success with carrots?
Yeah, some mild success. We didn't go too far with it because it was such a slow growing thing, and we finally just quit growing carrots. We need to get back into growing carrots. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a large number of stuff, and then of course my wife grows all sorts of herbs and spices and stuff. So
Okay.
peppers, cilantro, all of that stuff that you can grind up to make, basil, all that stuff. And it really thrives in aquaponics. And then, of course, flowers of all varieties. You put flowers in there, it's
Yeah.
just unbelievable. Corn just grows unbelievably in aquaponics.
Wait, what, really?
Yeah, and it gets really big, so you you have to have enough height.
Don't its roots really go crazy and send out a lot of roots and stuff?
Yeah, so that's one of the things too. When you go to harvest it and you clean that stuff out of there, you got so many roots that it drags out a lot of the gravel with it. When you take it out.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we don't grow corn in the aquaponics anymore because it just gets too big, and every time you go to change it out, which is every year, you lose a big chunk of your gravel bed because of the roots. They cling onto the gravel, and sure,
Right.
you can pull it up, but then you can beat the gravel out of there, and it's a lot of effort to do that. And if you've got it in soil, you can just pull it up, knock the dirt off of it, and throw the root into a compost pile. So, but now I use the water out of the aquaponics to feed soil beds, and that really gets you a good, healthy bacterial culture going, compost culture going in your grow beds.
Yeah.
And so, you have to work these things in combination. It's not all of one or all of the other. You have your aquaponics. It's there to grow fish and then some vegetables. You use the water out of the aquaponics to then feed soil beds and to build compost
Yeah.
so that you can expand and not have to have just a super massive, huge aquaponics setup.
Operation.
Yeah, you can have a reasonable size one and do a whole lot with it if you're feeding other stuff off with that water.
Yeah.
You know yourself that water is really works well in soil-based plants.
So that was the goal for when you got started, right? Was just to be able to grow enough for your family.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Yeah, because we were having, my wife was having, and I know I told this story before,
Yeah.
but, my wife was having these bad allergies. And after going to the doctor and getting this big long list of things, we started looking into growing some of our own vegetables. And then I came across aquaponics, and I thought, well, this should be a great idea. Because, when we were first learning to do the gardening thing, We didn't know what we were doing. Everything was dying. We couldn't keep it watered enough, and just all of that stuff. And the aquaponics was, I'll just be honest with you, when I first started it, is because I thought, I was lazy. I didn't want to get out there and have to water the thing 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Right. So, but, once I got going in it, I enjoyed doing it. And I ran into some roadblocks along the way and just plowed through it and kept going. So now I like to think I have a reasonable understanding of the operations of it and how it works. And we are not going to look back. We're going to keep running trucking. And I wouldn't go without my aquaponics now, even if I had the ability to spread out and put gardens everywhere, which now I do because I have the property. But just if you ever have a system that's up and running and you get that abundance out of that system, then when you go back and you don't have it, you really miss it. You realize what you had.
Right. Yeah. So are you able to grow all the food that you guys need on with the or in the past when you had your system before you moved it all over? Were you able to grow pretty much everything you guys needed?
Majority of our, all of our fruits and vegetables, just about. After we moved, we had to go back and start buying stuff at the grocery store again because, you have to go to the grocery store anyway. There's some things you just have to buy.
Right, like you're probably not going to press your own olive oil or something.
Right, there's just a few things like that. It's just not practical. You could do it yourself, but it's not economically or labor-wise practical to do it. But when we moved and the aquaponic system was down, we had to go back and start buying lettuce and tomatoes and cucumbers. And, you get these vegetables and you buy them and you're sitting there eating the thing. You're going, where is the flavor here?
Right.
And you just realize that there's hardly any mineral content, this stuff, because it's mostly all just pumped up water where they grow them real rapidly, and they're all hybrid or genetic modified. And anyway,
yeah.
So we really missed it, and it's been a slow process getting it back up and running because it's just it's a fairly large setup to start with, and then when you combine that, you got to tear it all down and move it, and doing all that with one person.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, just moving my little system. Yeah, it was a lot of effort, and you had what is it, like a 40 by 30 greenhouse or something like that?
And I got a 30 by 48 now, and at the time I had a 30 by 66.
Yeah.
And then I had.
So all that's gone off that property, huh?
Oh yeah, it's just a blank slate. You drive by there now, and it's just yard.
Oh wow.
So it's amazing. We put the place up for sale, and of course the real estate agent was all enamored with the greenhouse and the aquaponics, and oh my God, I've never seen this before.
Right.
And the fish, everybody just love the fish and want to go in there and feed the fish, and kids want to pet the fish.
Yeah.
But anyway, she tried to sell that with the greenhouse, and nobody wanted to pay anything for the greenhouse. Yeah. And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this thing, that just most people these days, they're so caught up in the instant gratification that they don't want to put any effort into anything for themselves. They would rather go work for the man and struggle through the system just so that they can go out and buy something to have it right this minute. And it's amazing. My daughter was commenting on that the other day about how different we live than most, just about everybody they know. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I think we talked about that when we were talking about the doing the lumber mill operations and saying that most people are actually looking for some kind of already pre-built thing, piece of furniture or whatever, not just looking for the raw material stuff.
Yeah. You know, I'll look at a pile of lumber and I'll just see all kinds of stuff, all kinds of possibilities. Most people look at a pile of lumber and they go, I don't know what I could do with that.
Right.
They don't have a clue.
Right.
You know, people these days they're not tuned in to the way that everybody used to have to do everything.
Yeah. I think really it's just, you know, I find a lot of inspiration in the people that are out there doing things, and really that's just what it takes, is just to just try to be that inspiration for other people. And I think, you know, after people kind of see you doing it, they're like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So
yeah,
it's one of those things.
Yeah, a lot of people really like the idea of doing that. There's a lot less people that'll go through the effort, but at least a lot of people are waking up, and when they start asking, well, why do you do this? And then you start telling them about the genetic modified foods, the vaccines, the whole thing with the pharmaceuticals and all of this other stuff, then the light bulb kind of goes off for a lot of people. And they're like, oh, well, dang.
Right.
And, you know, so, hey, if I can help people get to the point where they're at least thinking for themselves and some of that stuff, then, you know, I feel good about that. So.
Yeah. So we're coming up on the end of the show here, Robbie. I know there's if people want to get in contact with you, your email, is that the best way that somebody can get in contact with you about any of that
Yeah,
kind of
the
stuff?
email is the best way. I don't have my website set up yet, so for now the email is just the best way to go. And you could probably ultimate Hotmail. So
all right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out to come on the show with me today. If there's anything else that you'd like to maybe leave the audience for today before we wrap things up.
Well, I don't know what to leave them with, other than to say that a lot of the health problems that we have today and a lot of the sickness that people have is related to the food that we eat. And when you get the right food with the right nutrition into your system, then the body tends to heal itself. And so you can take that a long, long ways if you're just willing to do a little bit of effort. So,
Amen.
You know, just get out there and at least do some gardening. You know,
yeah. Plant
or something, but at least do a little bit of gardening and plant a few things.
Yeah, it's even if you are living in an apartment or wherever you're at, if you have a small little piece of land, then you can just get started with some containers and just get something in some soil.
Yeah, and you don't have to have chemical fertilizers. Even with that, you can use organic fertilizers, bone meal, blood meal, things of that nature that's organically derived instead of chemically derived, and you'll be helping yourself and the biosphere around you. So,
well, there you go. So it's just a little bit of encouragement for anybody out there that wants to, get started. Just you start where you're at, and then you just keep growing every year, and just keep trying to do a little bit more and a little bit more, and then you just start to take care of your own health and take it into your own hands. And so,
Yeah, because the powers that be around us in the world we live in is definitely not going to do it for you.
yep,
And,
yep, absolutely. Well, again, man, I really appreciate your time coming on today for a little chat, and I always appreciate you coming on to share your knowledge with the audience and everything. So, so thanks again, buddy, and we'll catch you. We'll catch you later.
Well, yeah, we'll be in touch.
All right, brother. I appreciate it, and appreciate everybody hanging out for the show today in Meadows and Makers podcast. We'll be back again next week, same time, same location on the MSP Waves. And up next, we have Crimson Cloud's Steam Wave Saturday, and so stay tuned for that. And Crimson goes over all of the happenings on the Steemit blockchain and any of the new things that are popping up. So stay tuned for her show. I appreciate all you guys for hanging out, everybody that was hanging out in the Discord chat and out there on the interwebs that I couldn't see. So you guys, really appreciate you guys for being here and coming on and hanging out for the show today. So hopefully there was some good stuff they were able to pull in from this show that can maybe inspire you for getting your own things going in the future. And so we'll catch you guys next time, and I'm going to play you guys out with a track by Divine and Junk Feathers called Awake. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks again for hanging out. Everybody have a great one. Peace.
Hey, Greg.